And again, these are just sort of themes along what you guys were throwing up, and these are questions that I'm sure bubble up to my head. And as a practitioner, it'd be interesting to see how you guys feel about your position legitimized by the events around you that unfold every day.
Just as we keep talking about expanding, as you said, it's not about politics with a capital P. Since that phrase, that term is getting expanded and expanded, opened up. Also, from our, or at least from my point of view, the meaning of art is much broader than anything that we are imagining, doing, or seeing within the museum or gallery space. I mean, for me, it's about any form of aesthetic intervention. Trevor Paglan has this very good point he makes when he talks about his work, which is about CIA rendition things. He says, well, if we're talking about aesthetics, political rallies have their own aesthetics, and they live or die by those aesthetics. And my definitions are broad enough that I think, just because I was looking at a documentary on sports, Elvis Presley's decision to join the army for 2 years and derail his career, for example, as juxtaposed with Muhammad Ali's decision to not join the army and go serve in Vietnam, or Elvis's decision to be photographed with Nixon and say, I'm at your service. These are all aesthetic provocations made in alignment with or against power. And that's within my broad definition of what we're talking about in terms of aesthetic.
Gestures.
Yeah, of gestures within or outside of aesthetic realms.
No, I take very seriously what you said, because I think that there is a requirement to also be more generous in our understanding and also more precise at the same time of what the political is. In Raqs we make a lot of work about clocks, and I've been thinking a lot about time since I've been here, and looking at Bani's video actually made me think even more about time carefully. It's very interesting to think about the fact that in Eastern India, or in Calcutta, you're victims of the National Standardization of Time, such that you lose important hours of the working day because of the fact that the calibration of watches and clocks, which is Indian Standard Time, completely insults the rhythm of daylight and nighttime in Eastern India, right? So as a result of which I think millions of people in this part of the country are in some senses have a slightly skewed notion of time, which is the fact that their clocks don't actually follow the diurnal rhythm, because the clock is set to an idea of national time, right? To me, this is a really interesting question. The fact that because the fiction of the nation state and its unitary claim to our consciousness must be maintained at all costs, it doesn't matter that you have sleep-deprived children, mothers, workers, you have people with, given the fact that light is such a beautiful thing here in Calcutta and in Bengal, the light here is such an important thing, right? And given that fact that we are all forced here to completely calibrate our sense of the day and night. I've been thinking about, for instance, a murder mystery where you commit a murder in Calcutta, cross the border into Bangladesh, and then reappear again in Tripura. And by arranging the acts and the events in such a way that you can construct a perfect alibi for yourself, because by the time you reappear in Tripura, you've gone back to the same time. I don't know. So maybe you have to commit the murder in Bangladesh, because you were, let's say, 6 o'clock in India, and then you were at 6:30 in Bangladesh.
1.5 hours away.
1.5 hours.
Now it's 1.5 hours.
1.5 because you've got sensible things like daylight.
No, but that's the government to that too.
Right, so you have 1.5 hours time to commit whatever you want to do, and then you reappear back at 6 o'clock in Agartala. It's a fantastic opportunity. Flip side of it is the fact that the Indian Standard Time calculation actually probably takes away important minutes and hours of the day for you. Now, for me, a consideration of sleep, of wakefulness, of tiredness, exhaustion, the rhythm of the working day, these are very important political questions. It has to do, if we read our Marx properly, it's actually only about how much time you have to work and how much time you have to reproduce yourself. How much time is given to dead labor and how much time is living labor.
We often adjust to the physical clock. We often adjust our biological
I know we do, but there are
I will give you one instance. In Nagaland and Manipur, the morning starts at 5. They start working at 5. In Bombay, you just can't thinking of getting to work at 5. They all go to sleep by 8 o'clock in the evening. In Bombay, parties start at 8. 11.
yeah, but train timetables, schedules, schools, work days, unfortunately they have to follow some kind of natural calibration of the clock and the calendar, which has consequences. I mean, it has consequences on the way we think about ourselves. So, for me, the capacity of ourselves, or even think about built space. How do you occupy space in a city? The relationship between the rhythms of slow and fast traffic. And Calcutta is a fantastic example of the cohabitation of different rhythms of time in the city. I fear that you will lose this elasticity because of the nature of urban development in Calcutta. Now, for me, these are as important political questions and sometimes deeper political questions because they are about, as you said, sir, about control and power.
Larger things.
They're larger things. They're substantive things. How do we die? How do we live? What's the nature of our bodies? These are very much larger questions. So, why must the political be only reduced in our practices? And because we are artists, we have the liberty and the amplitude actually to be able to process realities into any form of meaning as we desire. So the most private of love poems can be the most intensely political statement, and vice versa. If we take that case, then the only role that we as artists need not end up playing is that of the witness to history. But also perhaps through our acts, through the way in which we, like the glitch in the matrix thing, subtly, very quietly change the parameters of the way from now on somebody will think about the twilight and what it means to end work when it's dark or end work when the light is still shining. Perhaps that is small but significant.
It's what you choose to represent which history with. It's what is the symbol. I was telling Naeem about one of the most inspiring films that I've seen coming out of Iran. Is this film called Homework, which is a Kiarostami's film. And it is, all it is the director sitting in front of a table, and there's one kid after the other. He's interviewing 6-year-old boys about what they feel about homework. And that is all it is. It's a talking heads documentary for 1 hour. One child after the other comes and talks about homework. He goes through this process of, I love doing homework, to actually breaking down and saying, I hate homework and I really want to watch cartoons. Some boys starting to cry. And of course, it's sort of, there are hundreds of ways of looking at it. It's about the general sort of authoritarianism or the culture that exists in the school. There are different ways to look at it, but it is such a simple proposition and conversation to which he chose to use as a motif. So what is the motif we all choose, I think, at the end of the day, is, and what is the motif we choose to investigate? I think what you were saying also is that often we don't even know where we're going to reach, where we're going to go with that investigation. So it is, how do you arrive at the decision to start a piece of work? Is it a question that leads you into something, or a decision? I don't know.
Mohaiemen, let me ask you, whose film she was referring to?
Kiarostami.
I'm just seeking a clarification from you. This is just seeking a clarification. That you have talked about the double register, two registers. One political, where you have to render some service, art is at service, under certain compulsions and certain historical conditions. Everybody has to somehow contribute to that cause. At another level, which you consider to be a deeper level, where the mathematician, the artist, the doctor, everybody is somehow part of something called the political. So political in that sense becomes a quality of being, is it?
Yeah.
If that is the case, then at least logically speaking, you will have to tell us what is non-political.
I don't know. I think nothing.